At the station, Dad said, "She can't even afford economy." My stepsister laughed as they boarded their AC seats. I waited quietly until a man in uniform stepped up and said, "Your private coach is ready, ma'am." The entire platform froze. My name is Amelia Grant. I'm 29. And if you think this story is about money, stay tuned. Growing up, I was the afterthought in my father's second family. Mom passed when I was 6, and within a year Dad married Lydia, a woman who believed image was currency. Her daughter, Sabrina, was her mirror: perfect hair, designer luggage, and the kind of smirk that made you want to disappear. Dad adored them both. I was the polite background noise in our glossy family portraits. When I finished college, he refused to help with tuition debt. "You're independent," he'd said, a word that meant you're on your own. So I learned to survive alone. Part-time jobs, cheap buses, sleepless nights, and a savings jar that looked like hope. While they vacationed in Europe, I worked 12-hour shifts at a logistics firm, studying freight patterns and management systems until my brain blurred. 5 years later, I'd built something real, a transport startup specializing in private luxury carriages for cross-country routes. We didn't advertise. Our clients were CEOs, ministers, and musicians who valued privacy more than press. Dad never asked what I did. He assumed I was still in some clerical job. So when he invited me to join their family trip for old time's sake, I agreed, not out of nostalgia, but curiosity. At the platform, Lydia's perfume arrived before her words. "You might want to stand aside, darling," she said sweetly. "This train gets crowded." I nodded, smiling faintly. "You're right. That's why I arranged something quieter." They didn't understand until the conductor called my name. And in that moment, the sound of my success was louder than any apology they never gave. The platform went dead silent as the uniformed conductor gestured toward me. "Miss Grant, your private coach is prepared. Please follow me." Dad froze mid-step, his suitcase dangling awkwardly. Lydia blinked twice, forcing a brittle laugh. "There must be a mistake," she said. "She doesn't have that kind of money." I looked at her calmly. "You're right," I said. "I don't have money, I have ownership." Sabrina, my stepsister, scoffed. "What's that supposed to mean?" The conductor answered for me. "Ms. Grant owns the carriage service contracted to this route, ma'am." Their faces shifted in slow motion. The crowd began whispering. Cameras flashed. A couple of passengers even applauded quietly, as if watching justice unfold. Dad's voice came out hoarse. "You own this." "Among other things," I said softly. "Now enjoy your AC seats." Then I followed the conductor through the crowd. The private coach gleamed under the station lights, sleek, black and gold, my company's emblem etched in silver. Inside, velvet seating and tinted windows muffled the world outside. I'd ridden it 100 times for clients, but that night it finally felt mine. As the train started to move, I saw them through the glass. Dad standing still, Lydia whispering furiously, Sabrina glaring like envy personified. For once, I didn't feel bitterness, just distance. Halfway through the journey, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "We should talk when you get back. I didn't realize you'd done so well." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "I did well, because you didn't." I put the phone face down and watched the cities blur past. My reflection in the window looked unfamiliar, stronger, quieter, freer. It wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. I had spent years chasing their approval, and all it took to finally earn it was the one thing they said I'd never have, a name worth noticing. And something told me this train ride was only the beginning of a much longer journey. When I reached my destination that night, the air smelled like rain and freedom. My driver was waiting at the terminal, a quiet man who greeted me with, "Congratulations on another full run, ma'am." The investors were impressed. Investors. The word still sent a shiver through me. I'd built my company from spare change and sleepless nights, turning freight logistics into a private luxury line that now spanned 5 states. And yet, it wasn't the success that kept me awake that night. It was Dad's text. He had never once congratulated me. Every achievement growing up was met with comparison. Sabrina's already ahead in school. Lydia's helping with the accounts. You're trying, that's nice. Now, suddenly, I was worth a conversation. The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls. Dad. Lydia. Even Sabrina. And one voicemail that started calm, but cracked halfway through. Clara, he always said my name like it was an afterthought. Your mother would have been proud. I made mistakes. I replayed it twice. His tone wasn't guilt, it was fear. Fear of being forgotten by the daughter he'd once underestimated. By evening, I found out why. My company had been featured in a financial journal, front page headline. Amelia Grant's private luxury trains revolutionize domestic travel. Below it, a quote from my interview. When you're told you can't afford your dreams, by the tracks they stand on. That line went viral overnight. Sabrina posted a photo on social media, her smile brittle, caption passive-aggressive. Proud of my sis, even though she's too busy for family now, red heart. Lydia followed with her own. Some people change. Some just reveal who they were all along. I didn't reply. Because I wasn't busy. I was finally unavailable. Success had become my silence. And that silence was louder than every insult they'd ever thrown my way. But deep down, I knew Dad wasn't finished yet. Men like him never lose power quietly. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number while reviewing a new route expansion map. Amelia Grant, the voice asked. This is she. This is Mr. Conrad, your father's attorney. He's requested a meeting. Says it's urgent. I almost laughed. Urgent? After years of invisibility? Still, curiosity had always been my weakness. I agreed. The next afternoon, I walked into a downtown law office I'd once only seen from bus windows. The receptionist recognized me from the article. Right this way, Miss Grant. When I entered, Dad was already there. Suit pressed, hair combed, Lydia beside him pretending not to look nervous. Sabrina sat slumped on the couch, scrolling her phone but stealing glances at me. Amelia, Dad started, forcing a smile. Good to see you. You too, I said, sitting across from them. So, what's urgent? Lydia jumped in. Your father wants to make things right. We were hoping. I cut her off. Before or after the media attention? Her jaw tightened. Dad sighed. Look, I know I wasn't there for you the way I should have been. But the truth is, things haven't been easy lately. The diner's in trouble. Taxes, debts, the economy. There it was. The real reason. He continued, if you could help us with a short-term loan just until things stabilize. I stared at him. You want a loan? He nodded. You've done so well. You could help keep the family business alive. I leaned back, studying them. Lydia's watch glinted under the fluorescent light. Sabrina's manicure was fresh. Family business, my mind echoed. For years, I'd begged for support. They'd laughed. Now they needed me. Dad, I said softly, when I asked you for $200 to apply for my first job license, you told me to learn responsibility. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. You taught me that lesson well. I stood up, gathering my bag. So, here's me being responsible for myself. And I walked out. Behind me, Lydia's voice cracked. Amelia, please. But I was already gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. The city lights outside my window blinked like questions I didn't want to answer. I'd spent years craving their approval, but walking out of that office didn't feel like victory. It felt like release. Still, the ache lingered. You can grow from pain, but some part of you always remembers who caused it. The next morning, I found a flurry of messages waiting. Dad, we didn't mean to upset you. We just need a bit of help. Families should support each other. Lydia, you're being cruel, Amelia. We're drowning. How can you turn your back? And Sabrina, of course, she had to add her touch. Money really changed you. Guest class can't be bought, huh? I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I sent a single text to my lawyer. Initiate closure on the Grant family diner acquisition. Effective immediately. Because what they didn't know was that months ago, I'd quietly bought their struggling diner through a shell investment group. the same one that had been funding their business to keep it afloat. Their debts? Technically mine. Their landlord? My company. Their lights? Powered by the network I owned. By the end of the day, I'd signed the final transfer papers. The property, the assets, the name, it all belonged to me. I didn't want revenge. I wanted closure. But sometimes the universe gives you both in one stroke. That evening, Dad called again. This time his voice hollow. Amelia, the diner's been sold. They said the new owner terminated our lease. I took a slow breath. That's correct. You, he whispered. Yes, I said quietly. And don't worry. I'll make sure the staff keeps their jobs.
Just not you.
There was silence, long, heavy, like all the years he never spoke up for me had come back to haunt him. I never meant to hurt you, he finally said. I know, I said. You just never meant to love me either. And I hung up. The morning after I ended the call, I sat by the window of my apartment with coffee in hand. The city buzzed below, horns, footsteps, life moving on, while my phone sat silent for the first time in weeks. For a brief moment, I felt guilt trying to crawl back in, whispering that maybe I'd gone too far. But then I remembered every Christmas dinner where there was no chair for me, every birthday I spent alone while they vacationed abroad. Guilt didn't belong to me anymore. At noon, my assistant buzzed in through the intercom. Ms. Grant, there's a woman downstairs, says her name is Lydia Grant. She insists she won't leave until she speaks to you. I exhaled slowly. Send her up. A few minutes later, Lydia stepped into my office wearing oversized sunglasses and desperation. Amelia, please, she began, voice trembling. You don't understand what this has done to us. The diner was everything your father had left. I stood up.
Funny.
That's how you described my mother when you married him. Her lips parted.
Shocked.
I never meant. Yes, you did. I cut in gently. You meant every word. You wanted a new life, and Dad let you build it over my ruins. She flinched. He's sick now, Amelia. The stress. Then maybe he'll finally learn what stress feels like, I said, voice steady but soft. I spent half my childhood watching him teach me indifference. Now he's learning empathy. Her composure cracked. Please don't do this to him. I walked to my desk, opened a drawer, and slid an envelope toward her. Inside is a full severance for the staff. They'll all be fine. You and Dad, however, you'll need to start over. Tears slipped beneath her glasses. You sound just like him. I smiled faintly.
No.
I sound like someone who survived him. She left without another word. The door closed quietly behind her, a sound so final it echoed in my bones. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in years. But peace, I would learn, doesn't always come quietly. 2 weeks passed in stillness. I poured myself into work, expanding routes, negotiating contracts, pretending the quiet didn't ache. But silence has a way of amplifying what's buried. And one night, it all came rushing back. I was at my office late, reviewing client reports, when my phone lit up with a call from Sabrina. I almost ignored it, but something, curiosity, maybe closure, made me pick up. Wow, she said coldly, so you really did it. You took everything. I leaned back in my chair. You're welcome to define it however you like. You think you won? Her voice cracked, more hurt than angry. Dad's been a wreck. Mom barely sleeps. And me? I can't even walk into a room without people whispering about you. Her pain didn't sound fake, but neither did her resentment. Sabrina, I said gently, I never wanted to humiliate anyone. I just wanted peace. Peace, she snapped. You destroyed us. No, I replied quietly. You destroyed me. I just stopped rebuilding on your ruins. There was silence on the line. Then softly. I used to think you were jealous of me. I admitted. Until I realized you were never free either. You were just the favorite in a house built on fear. She didn't speak again. The call ended with a click that sounded almost relieved. Afterward, I sat there, staring at the city lights. For the first time, I didn't feel anger toward them. I felt distance like the final stop on a long, painful journey. The next day, I donated half my quarterly earnings to a fund supporting young women starting businesses. It wasn't charity. It was closure, a promise that pain would end with me, not begin with someone else. As I left the office, my assistant handed me an envelope. "This arrived for you," she said. "No return address." Inside was a photo. Me, age 9, smiling between Mom and Dad at an old train station. On the back, in Dad's handwriting, "You always belonged." The ink was smudged with something that looked like regret. I held that photo for a long time, tracing the edges as if it could still breathe. The same station where everything began, the laughter, the mockery, the silence. Now it felt like a full circle. A week later, I boarded one of my company's newest luxury trains, a quiet evening run through the Florida coast. The kind reserved for reflection. I sat by the window, watching the dusk swallow the horizon, my reflection flickering with each passing light. Dad never called again. Lydia didn't either. But Sabrina sent one last message a month later. "I get it now. I hope someday you can forgive us." I didn't respond. Some apologies don't need words, they need time. As the train hummed forward, I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd built. I remembered Dad's voice at the station. "She can't even afford economy." And how that one sentence turned into a lifetime of determination. Pain had once been my compass, but now purpose was. I had turned humiliation into fuel, isolation into innovation, and absence into freedom. The conductor knocked softly. "Everything comfortable, ma'am?" I smiled. More than ever. He nodded and left, his footsteps fading into the rhythm of the train. I leaned my head against the window, watching the rails curve like veins of possibility beneath the moonlight. For the first time, I wasn't running from anything. I wasn't proving anything. I was simply existing, peacefully, completely, and finally whole. To anyone who's ever been told they don't belong, remember this. You don't need a seat at their table. Build your own track. And when they laugh, let them, because one day, they'll hear your name over the loudspeaker and realize the journey they mocked is the one that set you free. The train slowed into the night, its whistle echoing softly, like closure made of steel and breath. I closed my eyes, whispering to the reflection in the glass. Some stories don't end with family, they end with freedom.